Welcome back to a new episode or a new show of the Hoffer Show. I am your host, Tim Hoffer, and on today's episode, I have a very special guest. We've been plotting this podcast for about almost a month now. This is my guy, James Duncan. We grew up in the same area. We didn't go to high school together. We went to middle school together. One of my first couple of years of playing travel ball together, and we played basketball, competed against each other for quite a while. He is a freshman at University of Central Florida, or UCF, and he's currently majoring in theater.
Acting, yeah.
Acting,
pretty much the same thing, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we're going to talk about his acting career. We'll talk about, growing up in the same area. Been wanting to get you on for a while, so I appreciate you taking the time for doing this.
Yeah, for sure, bro.
And so let's get into it. Like all your backstory before getting to where you're at now at UCF and being a student. So floor is yours. Go ahead.
Yeah. So like I said, me and Tim, we grew up in the same area. We both grew up like just south of Jacksonville. We went to the same middle school together, but in high school, we kind of went to separate high schools. We actually went to rival high schools, which is kind of funny, but...
And we're both sitting in the same room right now.
We're sitting in the same room. This would be looked down upon.
Were you born and raised in Florida?
Yeah. Born and raised in Florida.
Okay.
And like
Did
never
you grow
really...
up in the same house?
Yeah, so actually until recently, for 18 years, I lived in the same house with my mom. And like my parents got divorced when I was like pretty young, but
okay.
So like my dad had moved a couple times and like he had switched houses a couple times, but my mom, where I grew up with, like always stayed in the same house. And then literally 2 months ago, actually a month ago, she moved into a new house, but like only like 5 minutes away. So it wasn't even like same town, same...
So outside of Marsh Landing?
Outside of Marsh Landing, yeah.
Okay.
In the Sawgrass. Right across the street.
Oh, yeah, so that's another thing. For the longest, I didn't even know we lived in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
I forgot about that too.
Yeah.
So we grew up in the same neighborhood as well, which is even more of a small world. And now we're both here in the same room so many years later. Like even throughout high school, like, I don't think we saw each other.
Barely.
It was very little.
Very, very
like,
little.
Sometimes
Yeah.
at the YMCA and stuff.
It was actually crazy because I feel like the last time I saw you, me and you were like the same height. Now, how tall are you? Like 6'2", 6'1"?
6 foot, yeah.
It's 6'1". Like, you look 6'1". And I'm still like 5'9", 5'10", and like we used to be the same height. And that shit was crazy. You were like, you used to play guard and like you played like a conservative guard, but now you're like a lot strong. Like you look a lot stronger and you look like significantly more fit. And like, that's crazy how just like, you don't see people for a couple of years and then they just absolutely change. And like, it's absolutely crazy.
I like seeing when people change for the better.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Like, yeah. That's always, I'm like, you know what? Good for you, dude. I'm proud of you. Even though I didn't see you or I didn't help you on your journey, like, it's kind of like a let's go moment.
Yeah, for sure.
So you grew up in the same household, parents divorced at a young age. And so talk about going through high school before we talk about, getting into acting and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So in high school, I like freshman year tried out for the basketball team. And like, I thought as a freshman, I was relatively good at ball. And like, I played 4 or 5 times a week, like street ball, like with the guys, and like we played with some of the same people. I didn't even like make first cut, and I was like, damn, like. So I was like, all right, whatever, but I wasn't like planning on going to the NBA or like I wasn't planning on playing college ball.
Right.
So I was like, I'm gonna try and stick with stuff that I can excel at and that I can like be proud of like where I am. Compared to other people at.
Right. You mean basketball-wise or just other things that...
Other things completely different genre, like acting.
Okay.
Like I knew
You're more strong suits.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And stuff that I didn't need to be as physically gifted with.
Gotcha.
Like height and strength-wise.
So you get cut. So now you're hit with going to this new world.
Yeah.
Taking something really serious now.
Yeah, so in 8th grade, well, actually, I will say this, like from the time when I was a very, very young kid, like I always enjoyed like performing and stuff like that. Like I was always, singing at competitions, or I was always, just dancing or making up stories or whatever, kind of BS like that. And so my mom always was like, oh, you're such a performer or whatever. I decided to, in like my last year of middle school, to just like, do a play. Okay. And so I did a play with at Landrum.
Right. You had no expectations going into it?
Well, I was like, you know what? I'm pretty good. I feel like I'm pretty solid at this.
Right.
And so I mean, and also, there's the common stereotype of like, there's just not a lot of guys in theater at a young age. And like,
Okay.
I wasn't really competing with a ton of people. Like with the basketball team, I was competing with, 150 or 160 guys to get on the middle school basketball team.
Yeah.
Whereas to get, a lead role in a play, I was competing against 2 or 3 other guys.
Right.
So, I ended up, getting the lead in 8th grade, and then I kind of really just like, I thought it was fun. Like, I memorized, 60, 65 pages of lines. And, as a young kid, that was a lot. Like, that was a lot.
Right. It's different than memorizing notes.
Yeah.
From
100%.
a textbook.
Yeah.
Right.
No, 100%.
Yeah. Not only memorizing it, you got to add some spice and personality to it.
Yeah, 100%.
Too.
In 8th grade, though, it was just like, all right, get them down, like get the lines down. Because I really wasn't at that point where I learned anything. I just kind of said the lines with like how I felt like they should be said. I didn't say them with all the stuff that I had learned now, like it wouldn't even be close to the same skill level.
Gotcha. So now let's kind of backtrack. So that's where, what was that moment? So when you got cut and you wanted to take acting serious, was that kind of the turning point where you kind of found like a good passion in this?
So actually,
was it way beforehand, before even getting cut?
It was actually in 8th grade. So in 8th grade, I had gotten invited after like some random middle school performance or showcase or whatever like that. Right. One of the high schoolers from the department in the high school had come to the middle school to watch the performance and told me that I should go audition as a middle schooler for the high school play. And I was like, they let people do that? And they're like, yeah, they do.
Oh, that's dope.
So I went and auditioned and I got in. And so I was in a high school play as a middle schooler. And I would just like loved it so much. And like the play itself had over 170 people in it, which is quite ridiculous. I mean, that's the biggest cast I've been into.
Even to this day, really?
Yeah.
So even as a middle schooler too.
Yeah.
I bet that could be nerve-wracking.
Oh, no, 100%. But you just got to go in there. And that's like, honestly, the hardest part, I would say, as an actor is like auditioning. You walk in and people just like stare at you. And like their whole job is to judge you. And like, it is nerve-wracking, especially like as like a 13, 14-year-old kid to just...
These kids are 3-4 years older than you.
Yeah,
they got 3-4
yeah.
years of experience on you. Yeah. It is... I know your pants were heavy for sure.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I was mad scared. And you just walk in a room and like the main goal of the people there is to just judge you on your abilities. Like sometimes there will be something called a cattle call, which is essentially, I've only been to like 1 or 2, and they were for a film. And you pretty much you go. And then if they're like, all right, we need 5'9" people with, blonde hair. And you're like, all right, I don't fit. And they're like, the rest of you can go.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cap.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that happens.
So there's no gimmicks with...
Oh, no, none.
Wow.
It's all about like opportunity. And like opportunity is one of the great things that was said to me by my high school acting teacher. I had done the spring musical, like when I got invited to go do the high school show as a middle schooler. So having that opportunity upon Avidra was like, oh my God, this school is just as good. Like I met the director, and like now the director of that school and the acting teacher, he pretty much does everything at that school, is now like one of my best friends and like someone who I will like have at my wedding. Like he's like, I've, granted that kind of connection with this person, and he has taught me more than any other person. I'm afraid that like I wouldn't have had like as personal of a connection or as good of an experience or even as good as training if I had gone to the performing arts school. Right. So the reason, why I went to where I went was because I had that opportunity in the musical. And I was like, they are looking to get everyone involved. They are looking to be, very inclusive.
I mean, what I'm hearing, it's like more of a family environment.
Yeah.
Rather, if you went to that school, they're all trained and the same thing, but, it's not on a personal, level that, that you're describing with that teacher or that director. When you were in high school, what did you do to like prepare? Let's say you have a Oh, this is my question. So to go back to remember how you had like for certain plays or certain stuff, like they had requirements. Like if you weren't 5'9", if you had brown hair, brown eyes, no chance, buddy.
Yeah.
So are you selective? Like even when you found out about that stuff, were you really selective about which ones like
Which
you apply
schools?
to? Or no, not school,
Or like
but
auditions?
auditions, yeah.
Okay, so
Like, do they give out like the information? Like, yo, we're looking for this, for
okay,
this, for this.
most stuff for film, I would say most stuff like that, like any sort of agent will give me or any sort of casting website will give me, they usually will say, here's the description of the characters that we need, and like they'll send out a casting call. So it'll be like, we need a white man, brown hair, under 18 years old, but has to be over 6'4". Like, yeah, it's very, very specific half the time. And
So they mention that stuff.
yeah, so in a lot of them they do. But like if you go to a play, if there's like an audition for like something that's on stage, you have to do your own research about the characters. And like you have to say, all right, well, what is this character usually played by? Is he played by, a white man or a black man or a Mexican man or any sort of, race or anything like that?
Right.
And like, is this person usually tall, short? What's their age?
Right. And then you have to kind of collect a personality for them.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I will say a lot of the stuff that happens early on in someone's acting career is like you're pretty much never going to get casted for an adult role because they have adults for
Right.
that.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's tons of kids in the industry, but there's also tons of adults in the industry. We also have something in the stage, which it's just stage makeup, but it's called old age makeup. And essentially you do a wrinkle map. So you'll scrunch up your face and then they'll draw like little lines in your face to where the natural wrinkles on your face fall. And then they line them in with it's almost like a colored pencil, but it's for stage makeup. And they can make you look really old. They can gray your hair and do all that.
Right. And so then when you're done, then you relax, and then that's what.
So they like you squeeze in your face really hard, and it creates all these like natural wrinkles in your face.
Right.
And then they draw, like you just hold it like that, and then they draw in the lines, and it's old age makeup, and it looks really real. Like I had a friend.
Have you ever had it done on you?
It has never been personally done on me, but I've watched my friends get old stage makeup because they're like in a lot of the plays, especially in high school, they're not gonna like go outcast for adults. They're gonna make sure that people in high school will play it. But specifically that director was perfect for the role, so he decided to play it.
I've never heard of that. That's super dope.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, but especially for like for film, it's very specific casting.
So behind the scenes, like before a play, does everybody get makeup, or does everybody like get touched up so that way, like with the lighting, like they don't look dull and they look
with venues that are like really, really big? A lot of the times they'll give actors stage makeup, and it's mostly foundation and powder, so that they can have this very like clear skin tone, so that it's easier to see them from the back of the venue.
Okay.
But with a venue, like especially like a high school auditorium, a lot of times actors who don't like the role doesn't require stage makeup, they won't need to wear it. Like I think I had to wear stage makeup for one production, and it was because we just felt like it. Like it was just like, you know what? Let's see how this goes.
I think you wanted to do it more than
okay. I wanted to see what it looked like on me, and then after I saw it, I was like, no, let's take it off. So I took it off like at like intermission, which I bet was really, really confusing for the people that saw me before in the first act and then in the second act, because it changed my face a little bit.
Really? So it was that noticeable?
It's just, it makes like, you don't realize like how many like little marks are on your face and like how many marks are on your skin.
Yeah.
And especially like with me, like I have very red cheeks, and like I have like very distinguishable marks on my face. And with stage makeup, it just takes all that out.
Really?
And it just like
so it kind of evens everything out.
Like
Wow.
It gives you like whatever like the most neutral color on my face is, that's just what they make my whole face.
So let's go into like the process of like getting ready for like a big play. How many plays or films have you done?
It's been more than 12. It's probably around 15.
Okay, and that's from when you started all the way in 8th grade to now?
Ooh, I don't know. I did like 3 or 4 a year in high school.
Okay, so that's like a cool almost eight or 10.
And then I did like 2 in middle school, and then I've done like 1 or 2 here. So I've actually probably done like 12 or 13.
And those are just all strictly plays, or there's some films?
Play, musical, and then I've done a little bit of short film work.
Is there a different approach for you between a musical and a play, or a play and a short film? For you, like or mental approach?
I would say it's completely different for each one.
For each one?
Yeah, and it's honestly completely dependent on the show. There's a lot of times where in musicals, like you have to have people that can sing, dance, and act. Like if you have all 3 of those abilities, they're gonna use them. I'll be in scenes where I have to do jazz, dancing, or singing and acting all at the same time. Musical gets pretty tiring, but plays, I would say, comedies are, I would say, much easier on the mental than dramas. And it's crazy because I could literally talk about this forever, and I feel so bad about talking about it. But
no,
like
this is what I got you here for.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
There are so many different acting techniques, and a lot of them, there's like Meisner and Strasberg and Stanislavski method and like his systems and all that kind of stuff. It's a bunch of different stuff that you learn in high school. Well, most people actually don't learn it in high school. They learn it in college. And that was the big thing about my director, was he taught us college stuff in high school. Yeah, all the stuff that I'm learning in my class, like I already know. So it's really, really nice.
I connect with you on that through editing and stuff. I took a class making videos and stuff, and I'm going through classes right now. I'm like, I learned this 4 years ago, but yeah, I can connect with you on that. So early on, you built the foundation, and then so now you just run. So even in college, are you still learning a lot more techniques?
So there's definitely a finite amount of technique. There's a lot, but there's a finite amount.
What do you mean by that?
There's not like an infinite amount of well-known acting techniques. Like most people are either skilled in like inside out or outside in, active listening to other people and like reacting and taking what the character is feeling and then letting that run through you and then determining what you do on the outside. Outside in is like doing stuff physically and like hearing the words and then letting it affect you and your decision making. So it's almost like they refer to it as like emotionless acting, and it's more just like do something even if you don't feel it, like personally
within yourself.
Yeah,
like you wouldn't care about it, but it's the role.
Yeah, mostly I use inside out. It's a lot of emotional recall and like substitution. So like if a character is going through loss. Maybe he like lost his wife. Right. Like I personally have never lost my wife. I don't have a wife. I've never felt like loss of a wife, but I felt like loss of a friend, or I felt loss of
a pet or something.
a pet, like someone close to me or whatever.
Okay.
So I would use that. That's something called substitution. I would use that and basically sub it for what the character is going through. So I could say as an actor, okay, I've been through this. I can recall what I felt like during that time. So that's emotional recall. And then essentially as the character, I would go through that process.
Wow, I've never thought how deep this thing is.
It's so nuts because everybody who I talk to, and I feel like it's so crazy because honestly, I feel like I'm doing college very, very right because everybody who I'm talking to is like so stressed out about like, they're like, oh, I'm taking chem and bio. And I was like, what's your major? And they're like, oh, biomedical sciences. And I'm like, I'm an acting major. And they're like, what kind of classes do you take? Like today I literally did stage combat with swords. Like that was my only class today. It was an hour and a half of stage combat with swords, just like working with swords.
Fun.
I know.
That's fun. And it's more fun to you because you love it. Yeah. You take how many classes? 4? 5?
So I take, personally I take 5 classes, but you actually get a credit hour for being in a show. So if you do a show, you get a free credit hour.
What's a credit hour?
Like some of the class, like if you take like a gen ed, like an English comp, gives you like for one semester, it gives you 3 to 4 credit hours.
Okay.
English, and then a play, even if it's like it takes up tons and tons of time, most likely more than your classes, it'll only give you 1, but it still gives you 1.
Okay. See, now that I think about what goes into a play.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, it's practice 2.5 hours a day.
Okay, so let's go into that. So from the time that you get the role in the play to showtime, your daily routine.
Okay. Usually there's this kind of like grace period where you get cast and then you get your script. So usually you will spend 2 weeks looking at the material that they give you to audition with. And then sometimes less than that. Sometimes it's like only like 1 or 2 days you get to look at the audition material. Some days, or sometimes you won't even get to look at the audition material. They'll give it to you when you walk in.
On the spot.
Yeah. So that's a cold read, which is essentially they give you the script when you walk in, and they say, we want you to audition for this character, and this character. And you have to do 3 different characters, or however many that they want you to do. But you audition for the role, and then if you get it, there's this grace period, and they release the cast list, and you have to sign next to your name to confirm that you want to take the role. And then there's this grace period where you're essentially not doing anything except like researching or reading the play that you're doing.
But getting like background stuff.
Yeah, so like
to get a feel.
Usually there will be like a month or 2 where you'll get casted, and then you won't have any rehearsals, you won't have a script. The first meeting is usually production and a read-through meeting. So there's usually a lighting designer, a set designer, sound designer or technician, the director, stage manager, assistant stage manager, and then usually about a 30 or 40 person work crew. So that's all behind the scenes. That's all like the people that don't get seen on stage.
You wise, like whenever you are performing, like, consciously what's going on, and like, beforehand what's about to happen, or like certain lighting you're going to be hit with at this part of the play.
That first meeting is just introducing yourself to all those people, and like all those people introducing themselves.
So that's already like 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Yeah. So that's probably the first day people get a script, is the first meeting. So there's usually that that 1 or 2 month grace period, and then the first meeting is you meet all the people on the production team who run set, tech, sound, whatever, and do all the designing, and the backstage crew. And you meet your director, and then they give everyone who was casted a principal, which is essentially a lead or a supporting role, a script. And then sometimes if there's some sort of ensemble that they'll give them scripts to. But usually with plays, it's just you give the people who were casted lead and supporting roles a script. And essentially you'll do a read-through. So it is, I don't want to say monotone, but these people really haven't seen a lot of these words before. So the reading is just it's a cold read. Everyone's sitting at like a round table and just reading the play as their characters. And they read the lines to each other. And then once you get to the end of the play, the director, kind of makes an announcement. He's like, all right, good job. We read through the whole thing. Come back into rehearsal and start memorizing your lines. And so there will be plenty of rehearsals where usually the first 1 or 2 is just a read through. And then you start something called blocking, which is essentially movement within the space. So like if my character has to walk from this place, like from stage right to stage left, and does he do it briskly? Does he walk slowly? And where is he going?
So within those first 2, you don't have like the script in your hand, right?
No, you do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
The rehearsal process for a professional play can actually be done within like a week. But those people are getting paid, and like all hours of the day, that is their job.
Yeah, that's what
with high school and with college, like they understand it's going to take time.
Right.
And rehearsals are very far and few between. And you don't really have, tons of time. Yeah. So like that, 2.5 hours that you're at rehearsal, you just have to be very present there And then when you get home, you got to do your homework. You got to, focus on class.
Have you ever been in a play that you don't feel prepared? You don't feel like 100% you have everything down pat?
See, I've never wanted to put myself there, so I've always made sure like that I have my stuff ready. Like I always like, and sometimes I'll even go to the point where like we did a musical my senior year of high school. It was High School Musical, which was super, super fun. I got casted in 2 separate roles. So I played 2 different roles so the show, like the actual show ran for 8 days. So it ran for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then they picked up the next week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday the next week. So it ran for like 2 weeks. Okay. And that rehearsal process was like 2 to 3 months. So that gave us a pretty decent amount of time, but it was also like a 100-person cast. So it was a pretty big cast. The set was huge. There was basketball hoops like on set, basketballs on set. You got to get your head in the game. So like that was tough. And so I actually got to play Troy and Chad. But I don't know if you are familiar with the characters.
I don't remember
in High School
Chad.
Musical. Corbin Blue.
Is he the black guy?
Yeah.
Okay, you played both of them?
Yeah.
High School Musical, word for word, like the movie?
No. So the play is really horribly written. Like all the music is good, but the play is so horribly written. The first line of the play is, yo, doggy, Troy, my hoops boy. And that pretty much just sets the tone for how the writing is in the show.
Okay.
Like I said, like I never wanted to put myself in a position where I didn't know my lines. Right. So I had to figure out 2 characters' lines, and both of them are lead roles. So it was a lot of memorizing. So I was just like, I'm going to memorize the entire show. Right. So I ended up just memorizing practically everybody's lines that I was having scenes with, just in case somebody else messed up, I would be able to pick up on it. And like multiple nights, it happened. Like somebody would drop a line, and it would be like my cue. So they have to say that line for me to say my line, and they just forgot it, and I would be able to pick it up because I like memorized the whole thing.
Pick it up meaning like you would just say it for them?
I would say something that would make sense.
On the lines of...
Yeah.
That you could...
Like I could improvise and feed off of.
That's a gifted skill.
And
I'm not even in this stuff.
It definitely comes with just like surrounding yourself with this 24/7.
Right.
Like this is what I do. And so being able to just like memorize like that was definitely something that I had to learn over time. Yeah. Because like, in 8th grade, I did like a 60-page play, but my character, even as the lead role, like you still don't, like all those 60 pages aren't yours. Right. Yeah. And so like you're sharing those 60 pages with sometimes, 12, 13 other people. Yeah. And so it's a lot easier to do that. And like there's stage directions on that as well. So those 60 pages aren't just like lines that you have to remember.
So somebody forgets the line. We'll go back to what goes into like preparing for play. But real quick, what's been like your worst moment with that? What's the, either for you or for another person, where they just screw up terribly and you're just like, okay. And you sit there, you're like, okay, where do I go from here?
Oftentimes in musicals, there's a lot of dance. Like there's a lot of dance. Sometimes there's like acrobatics. Sometimes there are points where people are very close to the audience and performing, and any sort of slip up is very noticeable. There was this time where I was performing Chicago as a musical, and essentially I'm singing center stage, and then there is practically like a circus happening around me. Right. There are people with hula hoops. There are people with like twirly thingies or whatever. There are people doing front flips, back bends. And there was this girl in the front who had to do a front walkover, and like on multiple nights of the show just like fell on her ass. And like it just happened multiple times, and like every single time, like I knew the girl, so like I felt bad, but also like when you see that you want to laugh. And
so that's when that happens, when you're mid singing.
Oh, I'm like mid song, and like every single night, like I like let out just like a little chuckle that it happened. Right. it's some nights it was more noticeable than others. Like I will say that it was more noticeable than others.
And it was only for that play. She just kept.
Yeah, no, like just like
Flat
ate
out.
shit every time.
Oh
yeah.
man.
And
So how do you play that off? You continue. You have the moment where
sometimes you don't, man. Like,
you just
sometimes
flat out.
You just gotta walk. Like.
Oh man.
You just gotta like hope the audience forgets, but like they won't. But like in that moment, they will. They'll continue on. I wasn't scared that they were like looking at me laughing about it. I was more just like I felt bad for the girl. It's something that people mistake often, and this was also another good thing that my director told me was the audience wants you to win. Like they want you to do good. Right. They don't want to watch like a garbage show. Yeah. So like they're all rooting for you. No one wants you to just like suck. Right. Because then that would suck for them. So like when they see something like that, to some people it's like, yeah, like it's enjoyable to watch somebody, fall. But like it's also like, oh, you feel their pain because like they're performing in front of a lot of people, and when seeing something like that, it's just like, oh man, I feel bad. Yeah. And
some people it's like, okay, that happens. Let's keep things pushing. Let's keep going. And
that's how it was every night. Like if something ever happens, like one night we had one of my buddies played a lead role in the very same show, and he came down sick on the last night of the show and couldn't go on, which is why we have understudies. So like people get casted when the lead role is casted or when the entire cast is casted. People get understudies. Every character gets an understudy. Okay. So it is a different person who pretty much shadows the entire role.
Rehearsals and stuff. Are they're kind of like walking behind them and stuff, and
more watching from the audience.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes they'll have
focus lead them.
Yeah, it's one of the most important jobs in the entire industry is understudies, because if someone who gets casted breaks their leg, or if they, fall and trip and they have to go to the ER.
Right, or a family emergency.
Or a family emergency, yeah, like anything like that, understudy will have to go on. Then there's people called swings, which are essentially someone who shadows, it's an understudy, but for multiple roles. So, like, you'll usually have a male and a female swing, and, like, if any of the characters go down and that character doesn't have an understudy, or the understudy's out too, then the swing comes on. It's almost like a third string. If your first string quarterback goes down, you got a second string. If your second string quarterback doesn't make it, third string quarterback. Okay. Rarely will you have a fourth string, but like you just gotta, hope that the first and second string don't go down.
But then like the swing is like if they have no quarterbacks, like, but if a receiver's got a really good arm, they'll throw him at that spot, or because it's a little cloudy for me.
There's honestly a lot of acting in sports. You could pick a specific character like Troy. Most people know Troy from High School Musical. What does he want? He wants to be happy with the girl that he meets, and he also wants to play on the basketball team. Right. And those are the two. That creates conflict because his friends don't want him, falling in love with this girl, and they want him just playing on the basketball team, but he wants to be with this girl. So it inherently creates conflict, which everybody loves conflict. Everybody loves to watch drama. That's where everything comes from. It's just like, all right, what does this person want? Why does it create conflict? Like, what's stopping them from getting it? And how are they going to get it? That's essentially everything. So like you could put that in sport, because there's one-man shows too. I mean, there's literally plays written for one person, and oftentimes the objective is to get something overall from the world, and the obstacle can be themselves. Like a lot of like mental illness, you're your own obstacle. Roadblocks in your own life that you create, and the only person that's stopping you is you. Exactly. So oftentimes, you don't need another person to create an obstacle for you. You can be your own obstacle. And like everything in acting imitates real life because it is real life. Yeah. So that's just something crazy that, you never really think about.
Yeah, that was a good point that you just said. Yeah, you're your own obstacle. Kind of wrap up, what process-wise from start to finish. I know we were talking about, so you do rehearsals and stuff. So continue how you prepare until showtime.
You pretty much go through the entire script, and every single line that you have, like, you need to be able to understand why you're saying it. Okay. Like, why does this person have to say this at this point? Because you never really say anything that you don't have to say as a person. And you don't want to, when you're acting, you don't want to come across as like this fake character. Something you want to come off as a human. Why would this person say this here? 99% of acting and what rehearsals are is just like figuring out why you're saying stuff, when you're saying stuff, where you're saying stuff. And once you get that down, it's just all, you can like experiment and play with it. And it honestly, a lot of directors have different styles. So like the director that I had in high school, he would kind of like guide you in the direction that he envisioned in his mind. But a director that I had at UCF was just like, all right, we're going to try a bunch of different stuff, and whatever feels right, that's what we're going to stick with. So it all depends on like directing style too. But like rehearsal process, you have, with high school, it was like 1 to 2 months to figure something out. And then in those, I would say, final 2 weeks, 3 weeks of rehearsal, you'll usually have your set built by then. So you'll have like what's in the background, and you'll have, the furniture on stage if there's furniture on stage, or you'll have, movable pieces like doors and couches and whatever on stage that you need. Props as well, because they'll usually have a props table with a props master, and that person has to watch where all the props go. And then the big rehearsal is known as tech rehearsal, which is essentially full costume, full makeup, and full set. So you'll have usually your full set, and it's essentially as if you were performing the play. So usually it'll be after a tech rehearsal. So before the dress rehearsal, you'll have a tech rehearsal.
How far advanced is it before you actually go and do the play? Is it a couple weeks, a couple days?
It'll usually be a couple days. So it'll usually be 3 or 4 days before. A lot of times people will come out and wear their costumes in previous rehearsals, because with costumes, you don't realize it, but like the clothing that you're in now, you'll act a certain way. But when you put on like a suit, you'll feel different, you'll act different. If you put on a nice pair of shoes that you really like, you're going to feel different and act different. You're going to be more confident. But if you wake up and you wear your pajamas to school, you're like, all right, I'm a bum out today. So it all depends on, like what you're wearing. And if you wear...
So you've seen some people, like, even before, full out dress rehearsal day, weeks or a couple of weeks beforehand, do they do it to get used to, not only performing like that, but, to see how they feel and to get used to.
So with High School Musical, I wore my jersey and shorts. Like, we all had matching jerseys for the high school that we were acting as. And each of us had like different numbers or whatever. And so all of us had different jerseys. So we all one day, wore our jerseys. It was like 2 weeks before the dress rehearsal. And just to like see how we felt. Because like some of us were in sweats, some of us were wearing different shoes, some of us were, in shorts or tank tops or long sleeves or hoodies. And like when you put on a jersey and shorts, you're much more like free. So you have to see how your body moves within the space with the jersey and shorts on. Gotcha. And like we would dunk on stage. We would shoot basketballs on stage. We would cross over and bounce them. And like you got to figure out how you act in a certain costume. So that's why dress rehearsal is like super, super, super important.
Right. Dress rehearsal and then
tech rehearsal.
Tech rehearsal. And
so tech rehearsal is before.
Before
and that's
dress
just
rehearsal?
That's usually before dress rehearsal. And tech is usually...
And are you there for that?
Yes. So they need actors there, but there's not really like a lot of acting happening. Right. They just like need you to like go to the spots where you are so that they can figure out like, all right, which light needs to hit him at this point. Right. And they'll write all the lighting cues for the show. So it's like, all right, this ellipsoidal light needs to hit him with a green light at this time, or this one needs to hit him coming from, an upward angle or a downward angle, or the lights in the back need to be turned off at this point so it's more of an emotional moment, or we need a spotlight from left or from right. So it's everything pretty much except like the actual acting in the show. Okay. Also just like the mental strain it has and like emotional strain. Right. It's just... it doesn't really have one with High School Musical, but with shows where you have to endure something that's really tough for a character. Right. like there have been, like I literally said, like my wife had died in a show that I was in, or like my best friend had been hung. Trying to get into the mindset of a character like that can be very emotionally withdrawing. Like it can take a lot out of you. And you also need to learn how to like flip that switch of just like, all right, that you go out there and you perform and you get into that mindset, but when you're off stage and you're out of the show space, turn it off and like go back to reality. Junior and senior year of high school is like where I learned how to be able to flip that switch and like be comfortable with taking it off. But sophomore year, like I actually had like a full blown like meltdown coming off a stage where it was a play where, you know, like I said, my wife had died, and you have to like attend her funeral on stage. You're the last one there, and you pretty much the blocking requires you to just like get down on your knees and just like let everything out. And you're in front of, you know, like that performance was in front of 300 people. And so it's just me by myself on stage, just like you have to be there and like be present. And just coming off a stage, I was just like, whoa, what the fuck? Like what just happened?
Wow, that's...
Yeah.
So that was a moment. So you do that, you finish the show, and you get off stage. What's going through your mind on, you know, trying to, all right, James, come back.
Yeah, you got to separate. You got to separate. And my director actually had to like come and have a talk with me. He's like, hey, you can't do this every night, or like you'll burn yourself out. Yeah. And it's not good for you. Like, I'm glad that you're getting there and it's reading to the audience very well. And like, it is great that you're able to get there, and it's great that you're able to be able to, you know, carry this message out to the audience, but it's gonna hurt you.
Yeah. Hurt you more than that. Yeah.
So he was like, you know, I'm gonna teach you a technique to where you can, you know, figure out how to get out of this. Because the main thing is like, if you go out there and, you know, on a Thursday opening night and you do all that, you know, 12 hours later, you wake up and you got to do it the next day.
Oh.
And then the day after. And then the day after. So you gotta, every night you gotta get there for 4 nights. And then especially with a show where you have 2 weeks of a show, and on Broadway they have, you know, months and months and months of these shows. And it's just every night you have to be able to get there. But you have to learn how to flip that switch.
So let's say that moment where you're at a funeral and something like that, and you know it's, you know, it's coming later on the show. You begin the show. Have you grown to like, it's like a build-up thing, and you like build up to get that tension and to get those emotions arise within you? Something that you're taught like not to do is anticipate what's going to happen. Okay. So I could know a show, I could know every line in the show, I could know the show front to back, I could have read it a million times. Right. But at the end of the day, at the beginning of the show, my character has no idea what's going to happen. Okay. So a lot of times, you have to separate for those, you know, 2.5 hours that you're on stage. You have to separate yourself from, you know, an actor and a character. Right. And when you're on stage, you are the character. When you're off stage, some people like to stay in character, which is like method acting, which is constantly being in character for that time that you're either on set filming or on set acting. Right. On stage, which is helpful in a lot of ways. Yeah. Because then you never have to leave that mindset. But for a show that's like not super negative, that's not really that hard. Yeah. But for a show where, you know, you're really, like at the beginning of the show, it's all happy and dandy, but at the end, you know it's gonna get dark. Okay. You can't anticipate that. Every night, it has to just flow
hit you
and let it happen.
It has to. Wow. And that's why all of acting is just reactions. So if you hear something in the beginning and it's happy and dandy, your reaction is happy and dandy, everything's fine. Yeah. But at the end of the show, if something happens and it's not good, your reaction has to be not good, and you can't anticipate it whatsoever.
Really? Wow.
So you have to know what you're saying, but you have to not know what's going to make you say it.
Wow.
It's really confusing.
Question for you. Not even before your shows, even like within your own space, do you meditate?
Yes,
You do.
Especially
I see that in you.
with stuff that's really tough, like tougher shows that that you have to get in a certain mindset. Actually, yeah, I would say with every show that I've ever done, even if it's a comedy or a musical or something very, very sad, you have to meditate.
Did your director in high school like instill that in you, or did you find to do that on your own?
The big thing was that the seniors, when I was a freshman, I actually got casted in a show with them, and it was literally just like me as a freshman, a sophomore, and then like the rest were seniors. And they pretty much taught me like the ropes of like pre-show activities, which was like we all get there an hour and a half before showtime. And usually your call time before a show is 45 minutes to a half hour before. But they were like, all right, no, get there an hour and a half, 2 hours before. And we would all meditate, and we would run through like breathing exercises, body exercises, just kind of like
let everything decompress,
calm yourself down and just like be ready, because it's much easier to, like I said, live truthfully under imaginary circumstances if you're in a calm mindset and like a content mindset, rather than like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm late. I had to get schoolwork done, and I went to Chick-fil-A, and then I had to do all this. Like, you're like thinking about trillions and trillions of other things. And you're not, the last thing you're thinking about is, oh God, I have to go on stage and sell that my wife just died. Yeah.
Be a different person.
Yeah. You never want to have to force yourself to sell something or to
put yourself in that position.
Yeah. Like there's no reason to do that. And that's one of the things that like, it's another technique where it's just like, all right, I'm just going to do, like, I'm not even going to get into that mindset. I'm just going to externally fake it, essentially, until I start feeling something. Yeah. And if I don't, I'm just going to keep going. That's that's a completely different technique. It's something that I personally do not study because I don't believe in it. And it's just not something that I think I like affiliate with.
Outside of your shows, like even if you're, in your room, you meditate, do you meditate before you go to bed? Do you meditate?
If I've had a tough day, or if I know I'm going to have like an exhausting day, I will meditate. Or like if I have a test or an exam, or if I have, a rehearsal that day that I know is going to be tough, I'll meditate just because it helps me chill out. And it, like, I can organize things in my brain, like a list when I meditate, as to like, if I just wake up and I'm like in a rush and I need to go somewhere, I can't see things as clearly.
Yeah. Meditating is a very mature skill to do. It's really hard for some people. For me, it's really hard. For a lot of people, it's really hard to lock yourself in a room and to just sit and be with yourself. Like that's very hard for a lot of people. And it's very hard for a lot of people to be amongst their own skin and be within themselves. And with acting, that's like a whole different level, because you have to remember this is my body and I'm still me, but then like you have to go out and use your body and to be someone else completely different.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I respect you a ton for what you do.
It is, you have to be so comfortable in yourself to be someone else. Like it's like the saying goes, is like, before you love someone else, you have to love yourself. Like if you ever truly want to love somebody else, you got to love yourself. It's the same thing with acting. It's like you have to be comfortable with yourself to be somebody else.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times they aren't comfortable with themselves, and that's the reason they want to be an actor, because they want to be someone else. And that's when it gets tricky, because they'd rather live in somebody else's skin than their own. And usually those people have a harder time in the industry because...
Have you seen that like firsthand?
Oh yeah. No, a ton in high school. I mean, it was huge. Like people, there were many people who were just like, I mean, to put it politely, just not great people. And they would want to be somebody else. Getting to live as somebody else was like enjoyable for them. It's enjoyable for me, but I also like, enjoy myself enough to, go throughout my daily life and not be somebody else.
Right. So now my next question is, with all the plays and all the stuff that you've done, have you found any, I feel like for people that also do this, like, do they take traits and personalities from these characters that they have to memorize and they instill that with themselves and they also like live it in themselves and they just can't like separate from it? Certain things about how they act, like, oh, that's that character that they were in.
So it's funny.
I feel like you're strong enough to where that doesn't.
It doesn't necessarily happen to me.
Right.
But most people actually, there's something called typecasting, and it's essentially people who are the characters will oftentimes get cast as the characters. So like if there's a guy who can sing, dance, act, and also plays basketball, right, and you know, has a girlfriend and met her, you know, and they moved, you know, if they share a lot of similarities in their background and their relationships with their life, it would make them easier to cast as the character because they've been through all that stuff. So like, you know, specifically with the role of Sharpay, I don't know if you know Sharpay. Okay, she's a very got an attitude. Everybody doesn't like her. The girl who got casted in our high school was perfect for that role because not a lot of people liked her. She was very like a bossy person. She was, you know, a villain. She was perfectly casted for that role because she was that person in real life. A lot of the times you won't like carry something to it from a role rather than carrying something to a role. Okay. So like instead of like an actor taking away from a character, an actor or a character taking away from an actor. A lot of people hear about like the Heath Ledger story with Joker, about how the character affected him so much as who he was as a person. Like psychologically, the Joker character affected him a lot and he took away traits from the character of Joker.
And instilled it in himself.
Yeah, especially with film, that happens a lot because you're having to do it over and over and over again. And a lot of times, I won't say that film characters are more complex than stage characters because they by script they aren't, but with film all the acting is within the face and like within the eyes, and so you live closer to those people. With stage, you know, a lot of times you're seeing people from, you know, 100 feet away, so they have to live very big and everything has to be super over exaggerated.
That's a good way to put it, that film is here because you don't know who's on the other side, but you want to show it and you want to sell it to people, that all the actions. Yeah, I can see how that can mess with somebody's mental a lot. Yeah. Wow.
So personally, I've never firsthand seen anybody be like affected extremely by a character and taken traits away from a character like that. But I've heard plenty of stories, especially with film. Like I've seen it mostly happen only with film. Stage is a little easier to disconnect.
I would love to go see one of your plays.
Yeah.
Now that you've explained it, and now I know the backstory of like, you know, what goes into you mentally, physically. You know, I view what you do, a play, that's a whole basketball game. That's a whole physically, mentally, and as you know, theater is, I think, theater and basketball, and mostly anything, is 90% mental, 10% physical. If you don't think you'll hit that shot, you won't hit that shot. If you don't think you'll do good in the play, you will not do good in the play. Yeah. Like, it's just flat out simple. So what I feel like you're good about, whatever you feed your mind is what.
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's all preparation. Yep. Everything in life is just preparation. Yep. And the opportunity to seize that moment. So
you want to make this out of a career?
Oh yeah, no, that's why I'm majoring in it. I knew a lot coming in here. I recently was in a play competition against a bunch of different with a bunch of different plays. And our play won best script, best director, and then I personally won best actor out of the whole competition. Which
good
was
for
like
you.
So amazing. Competing against like seniors and juniors.
And was that
really
recent?
Nice. That was last Friday.
Wow.
So
congrats. That's big time.
It was fantastic just realizing like, all right, you know, I have it. I can do it. Just seeing that made me really happy. So I want to be able to to perform in either medium, but film is where I want to start honing my skill. Film acting is totally different because like stage acting is very big. Everything has to be very, very large. But film acting has to be very minimal. You could do something on stage and 50 million people will miss it. But you could do something on film and it's there. And like if people rewatch it, they're going to see it. Yeah. Or if people watch it for the first time, they're going to see it. Like if you look like this, stage people won't care. But like film, people will be like, oh, he did that for a reason. The
focus is way more intent.
Yeah. You have to have a reason behind every single thing that you're doing. If you lick your lips, if you bite your lip, if you look a direction, it all has to be for a reason. And that's something that we get taught is like when you walk into an audition room, you know, stand up straight, be confident, but don't be cocky. Don't lean back and be cocky. And if judges or directors or casting directors are giving you feedback, you know, don't get too close to them, or that might feel intimidating, but don't get too far because it might feel like you're not paying attention to them. Like you got to be in that sweet spot and you got to be taking notes or you got to be listening to them. So like leaning forward and keeping a keen eye or a keen ear. Acting is all like body language.
So what are some goals for you being here at UCF or within the next couple of years after school or in the future?
At UCF, I'd like to get a main stage role. Most of them are most roles are usually earned by seniors and juniors because there is like a hierarchy within a college situation and even in like a high school situation, there's a hierarchy. And freshmen usually they're not at the top of that hierarchy.
So what about outside of UCF?
Outside of UCF, I would love to be in a dramatic film casting in Atlanta. Atlanta's got a lot of great film work going on.
Is that like the Mecca?
Right now, it is a great filming city. Like all the Marvel stuff, Atlanta. Like there is tons of filming in Atlanta. And usually when I get like a text from my agent or like an email from my agent that like is looking for work for me, because with acting,
you have your own agent.
You get your own agent. And essentially you don't pay them until they find you work. So they are actively going out with your resume, with your self-tapes, and with your like performance photos, and with your headshot. You basically need to get like a professional picture of your face or whatever. Right. And they're going to these places and they're like, all right, I have this guy, he's great. This is what I like. Does he fit this? And then if they're like yay or nay, they'll need you to send like a specific performance for them. So if they're like, oh, we want to see a dramatic monologue, make it 1 minute. The framing needs to be like a 3/4 shot. Okay. And then I film that, send it to them. If they're like, maybe we'll give you a call, maybe we won't, right. Or just like a straight up yes or no. Yeah. But most of the casting calls that I get are in Atlanta. A lot, like some of them are in Orlando. Okay. But I haven't gotten one where I'm like, all right, I want to make the trip up to Atlanta. And a lot of times, especially with COVID and with just like technology getting better, they'll just want you to send them a video. Oftentimes, like they'll just want me to get like a white background or whatever background. I have one at my house. And I'll film that and then I'll trim it down and send it to them. And I've gotten a couple callbacks for like some very small short films there, but nothing too crazy, especially because I have to put that I'm collegiate right now. So like they know that I'd be having to like go super out of my way and that I'm not in the local area. These places, like they don't want to waste your time. Right. That's good. So if they have work for you and they feel like they're confident in their decision making, like they'll be like, all right, we have work for you. But yeah, so one of my goals is to get either a callback or a casting in something in Atlanta.
Wow, Atlanta's a good spot. I would not think that. I would think Hollywood. I would think California.
So LA is like this whole different world. It's definitely more like influencer ran now. Like social media is like I have a lot of friends, very, very popular in social media. I've got a friend who's got like 6.3 million on TikTok or whatever. And she was 17 when she blew up and she got like 800,000 followers or whatever. Mm-hmm. And she was like, screw it, I'm not going to college. and like
Right.
finished her last year of high school online and moved to LA. And now she's like living and doing like reality TV over there, and she's doing social media promotions. She's got like 6.8 million on TikTok, verified. Super dope person. She's doing a lot of good work over there. But it's like this whole world that she like, we have conversations frequently, and it's not what you think or what any like sane person would want. It is a crazy world. There's a lot of crazy people in LA.
Yeah, I've heard from people that live in LA. I've heard like influencers or people that, they have a bunch of friends. Is like, if hell in any state or any part of this nation was a place, Los Angeles or California, LA, that's the spot. It's literally hell. Yeah. It's not what social media perceives. It's not. And I definitely saw that before. Like, I would ever try and move there. It's just, it's a lot of what's the word? Yeah. It's just like, so it's, good for her. Here in Orlando, it's quite a bit of diversity with clothing, like a bunch of different styles. And I'm like, oh my God, that looks tough on that one guy. Yeah, especially your shirt. I already told you before, but yeah. Fashion my favorite fashion season is like this time. Like
fall.
Going into winter.
Because you can wear more layers.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Well, not here in Florida. Not for too much.
Kind of.
You could wear flannel and a hoodie, but then you start to sweat, like afternoon time. I feel you. Yeah.
But in the morning, you can wear the hoodie and you can wear the flannel, and you put it in your backpack. And
you're cool in the rest of the day. Yeah.
Well, essentially, that is what I do for work aside from acting. So, acting's not really paying the bills right now, because, I'm a collegiate actor. So, I'm not really getting paid to be in shows. I'm not getting any royalties or anything like that. When I was doing acting in high school, I also worked like a part-time job at Dunkin' Donuts or whatever. So I worked there
James
for a little
Duncan
while.
at Dunkin' Donuts.
James Duncan at Dunkin' Donuts.
Love that.
Yeah, everybody loved that.
Yes, sir.
Not spelled the same way though. Gotta put
Tim
that
Duncan.
out there. Yeah.
Tim Duncan, not with the K.
That's how I built up my capital to start my business. Like, I sell fashion, and like I sell name brand clothing, and I sell name brand, like, a lot of hype stuff, and I sell shoes.
E-commerce?
Oh, so, that's something that I use, but I use like eBay and Goat and StockX and like all the platforms that everyone's familiar with. And then I also, run Instagram and Facebook pages for my company. I will say that I wouldn't like do shoes, or like I wouldn't sell clothes if it didn't make me happy. Like, if it just made me money and it like just got me by so that I could do acting and basketball or whatever, I wouldn't do it. But like it gives me a sense of like fulfillment to like get shoes and be able to supply my friends with cool shoes, or supply people around me with cool shoes. And like now people know me, and like I can create relationships and connections to people where they're like, oh, do you have this? And I'm like, actually I do, and I got it in your size. Do you want them? And they're like, you just made my day. And just like being able to change somebody's day, week, life, month, whatever. It's crazy, and
that's the best thing in this world.
Yeah, it's just impact. Making people happy. Yeah. So I will say that if what I did for work like didn't give me a sense of fulfillment or didn't make me happy, then I wouldn't do it. And I would go out and I would work whatever job did make me happy. But this is making me happy, but it's also allowing me to like be comfortable in like going out and with my acting buddies and going to McDonald's and spending $5. So it's whatever.
Happiness for every person is different. Some people being happy is, they go out with their friends and they go drink. That's fine. Some people happiness is they stay in the room and they read a good book. Like, everybody's happiness is different. Like you were saying, you could go to McDonald's with your acting buddies, spend $5 and have a night of your life. Like, happiness for everybody is so different. Like, for us, happiness is going and playing ball for 6.5 hours.
Which I need to chill out with because my legs are killing me, dude.
So last couple questions, and then we'll wrap this up. First one of three. We're gonna go back to acting. Who right now do you look up to, as whether it's actors or people that, are in that field?
Tom Holland, who is the current Spider-Man.
What do you like about him?
Just his whole style. He's got this sort of like childish way about him, like that I have with myself. It's like I can be very mature. He is also like an extremely hard worker, and like most people don't know this, but like he's from the UK. Like all of like his accent that he does for Spider-Man is like he learned how to do that. He's also like a trained ballet dancer. Yeah.
Really?
Most people don't know that. He is like a professionally trained ballet dancer. And it's because like you have to be able to have all those outlets as an actor to be ready for everything. And he also knows gymnastics, which is why he was able to land the role for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And so it's just really, I look up to him because of his work ethic, but also like his charisma and his ability to create relationships, and also his just like how hard he works on everything that he does. I give him a lot of respect, and so he's definitely who I look up to, and he's in his like early 20s, so he's someone who I can look up to and be like, all right, he's not that far from me in age.
Do you know what a life mantra is?
Yeah, like your motto for who you are as a person in your life.
Yeah, it could be a quote, it could be a saying, something that you model your life by, or something that you go by, that you like to go by. Could you think of a life mantra that you like to?
They're all kind of like centered around specific goals in my life.
Okay.
But I would just say, do what makes you happy.
Plain and simple.
Yeah. And I feel like oftentimes people are trying to make others think that they are happy rather than making themselves actually happy. I think that I've worked really, really hard, especially in the past 2 years. I would say when I was 16 years old, I didn't feel comfortable with who I was, like as a person, and with the people that I was surrounding myself with. In the past 2 years, like getting into college, getting into an acting program, getting casted in certain shows, and I think has definitely benefited me and allowed me to be just like happier. And like I could officially say like I am happy with who I am, and like I'm happy with my daily routine. I'm happy with what I'm doing.
You're not content, but you're happy.
Yeah. I'm not just like whatever. I'd rather be doing something else. Like everybody would always, rather be, doing other things, and like they could be but I'm like, you know what? I enjoy, waking up, going to class, going to play basketball, hanging out with my friends. Like I'm living a great life right now, and I'm happy with it. Yeah. You gotta just
don't make life so hard on yourself. Yeah. Life is a very simple, even though we like to make it really difficult on ourselves, make a really tough schedule and try and fit a 48-hour day into 24. Life, at the end of the day, is simple. And to go off what you're saying, you've seen a big difference in past 2 years. Like if you looked at your 16-year-old self to see your 18-year-old self, your 16-year-old self will say like, what did I do to become this person? Yeah. And I always think like for all the, the hard work that anybody listening or watching that you've done, wherever you're at now, live the life that your older self wished you've been dreaming for a while.
Yeah. Live in the present.
Yeah. That's my mantra is be where your feet are at. Be present, because there's no other moment that's better than the one that you're in right now.
Yeah. No, 100%.
I'm trying to be present with this conversation with you right now. I'm present with, anything that is going on in life. And then obviously with what James and I were talking about today is, sometimes, along with meditating, but also to, if you're going through a tough moment, realize why am I feeling this way? How can I change I'm feeling this way? And it's only going to happen for a couple more seconds. Take a deep breath. And if you're breathing, you're doing well in life, because there's people right now that are they're not here right now. So, dang, I got deep really fast. I did not want to.
No, I will say that is, I am living better than probably 99% of the people on the planet. There's millions, billions of other people that are living worse than me.
Yeah. I've seen, and every time I walk out of my door and I drive down like to my classes and stuff, I get hit with that every day. See homeless people. I see so much less unfortunate people. I'm like, I just get that hit. I'm like, oh my God, having to beg people for food or just money just to survive. So it's like, I think being down here and living down here has been a huge like eye-opening about life.
100%.
Yeah, and I bet you feel the same.
Yeah, 100%. It's like you look around and you're like, okay, I get to go back to a home every night. I get to go back to food. I get to go back to sports, class, whatever I'm doing that makes me happy. And and I'm learning. I'm constantly learning. And like, there's other people that didn't get as far or didn't make it, and it's not for any reason that is their fault. Sometimes, I mean, sometimes it's not. So I will say that I'm happy where I am, and I'm definitely very thankful to be where I am.
For sure. Yeah. Last question is, I open the floor to you. You run the podcast now. If you have any questions for me, or if you want to take this time to talk to everybody that's listening in right now, to listening to your voice, the floor is all yours. You can say anything you want, anything for me that you want to talk about to end this show off.
I definitely do want to ask you something.
Yeah, go ahead.
And it's more of just like I don't know if it's like a life question or not. It seems as if you have made this change in your life where you're just like, dude, screw it. I'm going to try and be better at every aspect of my life. And like, I have seen you, like, even though we haven't talked, like it's been months or years even, since we have like actually sat down and had a conversation.
I don't even know. Like, even in middle school, we knew of each other, but I think this is the first time we've ever
sat down
and talked.
Yeah. I've just seen this, like, and it's almost like I'm like watching from a distance, but this like exponential just growth of like a human.
Right.
What was like the wake up call that was like, dude, I need to make this change?
I think it was a bunch of moments built up on top of each other. I think when COVID hit, that was the main one. When COVID hit and I was faced with not deciding to not play my senior year, which was really hard for me. To be with a program for 3 years, playing high school basketball for 3 years, to just say no to a team, to say no, I can't, and choosing, I think one of the most mature decisions of my life was to choose my health over the game that I love. So during that time, I was by myself. And I've learned that in this life, you have nobody else but yourself.
Yeah.
You are stuck by yourself. You are stuck in one body, and you can't do anything about it but change the way that you have routines and change the way that you put stuff in your mind. So being by myself and being stuck within my own thoughts, my own body, that hit me hard. And just building routines and just feeding my mind with as much positive thoughts and just giving myself credit. Like, I would have thoughts of myself. I'd look in my mirror and have like 20-minute conversations. Like, sometimes I would yell at the mirror. Sometimes those moments of being harsh at myself, but sometimes, house is empty, I would yell in the mirror saying, you know what, Tim, I'm so proud of you. You've come a long way. If the shoe was in the other foot, if other kids were in your position, they would fumble, they would crumble so hard and they would just fold, but you stuck through it. So it was a bunch of self-talk and nobody, kind of reaching out and like handing me anything. It was all like a mental switch. It was being by myself in COVID. It was probably when I started YouTube. Being accountable I'm trying to grow this. I'm trying to figure out this, but I've always been a people person. I really connect with all types of people, all types of races, backgrounds, all that stuff. Like, I didn't know anything about acting or drama or any of that today, but I ask simple questions. And once I get a roll and I get a feel on things, I can connect with people.
And now you And it's great because you talk to a bunch of different kind of people and you are this like malleable person. It's great to just be able to learn all the time about tons of different stuff. And like that's why I facilitate myself in a bunch of different areas. Like when I'm playing basketball and like, you know, I'll be on like a tear. I'll hit like 4 threes in a row. I'll finish up a game and then people will be, you know, chatting it up with me or whatever. Yeah. And they'll be like, oh, like what are you majoring in? And then I'm like, oh, I'm an acting major. They're like, yes. What?
Exactly. Yep.
It's very confusing for people. Or like when I
get that too. I get people ask me like, what are you doing? Communications? And they're like, oh, you do videos? I was like, yeah, I have a YouTube channel. I'm like really quiet and subtle about it. They're like, what? I was like, yeah, you have a YouTube channel. And they're like, you're not a YouTuber. I'm like, go check it out.
It's people will create assumptions about you from the activities that you do. Mm-hmm. And then when you're like, no, this is my passion. And people will,
and then once they, you know, even I bet you've seen with like close friends and stuff, people will find ways, you know, in their own ways to be as supportive as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whether that's, you know, resharing their stuff on social media or, you know, being out and about and saying, yo, you should check out my boy's, I don't know, his music or check out his YouTube channel, or you should come to this play and check him out, see him perform. Like, it's the little things that for both are like for you acting and for me making videos, it melts our hearts.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God,
like,
I appreciate you.
I feel so happy that you're supporting me. Like, even though you're just like sharing a post on Instagram, it's like, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
It's the littlest things that makes people's days. And it's crazy how support can go such a long way. Yeah. Such a long way. So with YouTube, it's kind of been like the more accountability side. Nobody's coming out to help me. Yeah. It's me versus me. So I've learned to create opportunities for myself. And that's what the name of YouTube is. Whether you think, whether or not it flops, whether it's a great idea, it's a terrible idea, but it's really hard when you have nobody really supporting behind your idea except yourself. Maybe a close 12, 10 people, that helps a lot. But at the end of the day, it's you. It's you in the video. It's you behind the scenes spending 12, 16 hours on a 4-minute video. I think it goes hand in hand with acting is the mental aspect. It's draining. It's terrible. Some moments you have really high highs and you have really the lowest lows. And I bet you feel the same way of like having so many thoughts of quitting. So many, you know what, let me just stop this. Let me not do this anymore. Let me just take the easier route and do something else that I could be okay in and just make quick money. But it's the accountability and the self-drive of wanting to do things and getting stuff done that since doing YouTube has changed with me. So, and then just connecting with all different types of people every day, being nice to people, whether anybody's watching. And recently I've been living by this quote where your future kids, your kids in 5 years, if they had video camera footage of what you did when nobody was around you or nobody's in the area, what are you doing? Yeah. What are you doing when nobody's watching? What is the film going to look like when your kids down the road watch and see what kind of dad or what kind of person you were becoming before you decide to have a family or not?
No, that's huge. I mean, the biggest part of life is what you're doing when nobody's watching. I mean, that's because that's who you are, with no influence.
Those are when the biggest actions talk. Is when nobody's with you, nobody's near you, nobody's hyping you up, nobody's talking to you.
Nobody's forcing you to make videos. Yeah, exactly. You're just doing it because you love it, and you're doing it because you're responsible, and you're doing it because you know that in the long run, it's benefiting you. And I think that's a really important thing. I think a lot of people, I think that's why like you see like a 90 whatever, you know, high school graduation rate. Mm-hmm. But then when you get to college, it's like 50, 60%. Yeah, big drop. And it's just because like nobody's forcing you to do anything. You have to take it upon yourself to finish what you started and to and to go every day and like do what you need to do. And I think what you're doing is great. I think you're balancing, you know, keeping yourself happy and like living and like your videos and school all at the same time. I'm assuming you probably work out a lot. So, I mean, like balancing a healthy lifestyle with also creating content and going to school and working, it's like, it's really tough. And no one's telling you like, don't give up, you can do it.
Yeah.
You have to be that person that's like, don't give up.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing to kind of just like leave it on. It's just like, don't give up. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And like never give up on something that you're passionate about. And no one's forcing you to live the life that you're living. So live it the way that you want to live it, and live it the way that makes you happy.
Yeah. And create a life that you want. Create a life that in 10 years you'll be benefiting from mentally, emotionally, physically. And it's all right to have those self-talks with yourself. It's all right to feel emotions. It's all right to feel away. And if you see people that cover that up really well, and you see people that are doing really well in life, or, you know, they're put in a better position, maybe they didn't work as hard as you are right now, just let me tell you, just know your time is going to come. Your time is going to come at the right time. And I can't say you can believe me or not, because I'm not, you know, there yet. But when that time comes, it's going to hit so different, and it's going to hit at the right time, right place. And you're just going to be reflective of all the stuff, all the bad days, good days, and just say it was all worth it in the end. That's what I'm going to leave it on. If you guys are listening to this point, me and James appreciate you a ton for tuning in and listening all the way through. If you are watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you are listening on either Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, make sure to leave a review. Out of 5 stars, let us know what you thought of today's conversation. Anything that you took out of what we said, or what James said, or what I said. I'm going to link all of James' socials. So if you guys want to talk with James furthermore, shoot him a DM on Instagram. He'll be happy to talk about anything that, you know, if you're willing to reach out to him. But that concludes. Again, James, thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, that was awesome.
It was a pleasure. And that's it for this episode of the Hoffer Show. I appreciate you again for tuning in and watching. And that's it. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.